we can actually assign maximum and min usage for various resources under loads. These adjustments can be done live without having to take Synapse Analytics SQL offline at all. So some of the cool things that we have in Synapse is this ability to reserve resources for a group. So if a group is coming in, we also have the ability to limit the resources a group can request and consume. That's actually a huge advantage. We can also share resource access based on important levels. So we'll take a look at that. If we have a high priority query, we can actually give them importance, and we can also adjust settings like query timeout values to reduce the need for DBAs to manage, runaway queries, etc. So there's less management overhead across the board. Initially, when we set up Synapse Analytics, we can actually set up workload management into production, and we can actually reserve it on one compute cluster. One SQL pool that we have, we can actually reserve resources across the board with workload management. And that's what we'll take a look at as we go through. So let's go ahead and jump right into data loading and how we can load data and then also leverage some of the resource allocation capabilities inside Synapse. All right, so welcome to this demo here. What we're going to do is focus on data loading and some of the best practices for data loading. One of the key things you have to understand with data loading is that you can have multiple different types of workloads that are coming and loading data into Synapse SQL. And there could be mixed workloads. And some of the challenges around that is that you have to do loading, transforming. At the same time, we could have hundreds of users coming and querying the system, and everything has to hit the SLA. To be able to accommodate that, Synapse has multiple ways to take care of that, right? So one of the items is on the Synapse SQL side, you can obviously have Spark clusters and Synapse SQL clusters work together. On the SQL side, you can also implement what is called workload management. Workload management with Azure Synapse SQL consists of three concepts: the workload classification, workload importance, and workload isolation. These capabilities give you the ability to splice up a cluster into multiple parts and be able to give resources, system level resources on the Synapse SQL pool to different workload classification groups. So let's go ahead and give that a try. You can go ahead and follow this along from the content and create a new SQL script. When you create a new SQL script, go ahead and let's make sure that this is, by the way, we're in the developer tab. Let's run a query here and make sure, and this is going against PDW exec request. It's a DMV. We're making sure that there is nothing running on the system right now, and there is nothing running currently on the system. So that's great. So let's go ahead and load. So do a very, very heavy load and see what happens here. So we're going to go into the integration, and we are going to in the integration we're going to go ahead and run activity. So we're going to run a pipeline when we can trigger that under add triggers, and we are going to just simply flood the system with a huge amount of queries on purpose just to see what happens to the system and to see. And you can schedule this trigger, but we can also trigger it right now, and which is what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and trigger this right now. Let's go ahead and okay that. So it is actually running, and you can see that. And we can see, let's take a look at what is actually running now. We can go ahead and start taking a look at on the system with the same DMV query, what is running on the system. And we will see that, as you can see, it is taking a little bit longer, and you can see that there is a good number of queries running on the system. right? So,